Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Today's video was filmed 5 years ago. It's been unlisted in the stash for the last 5 years. I pulled it out, gave it a re-edit. If you guys want to learn how to make a 2x4 bench the strongest way, step by step, this is going to show it to you. Cheap, strong, last you 20 years. Do it yourself. Thanks for watching. Now, if you're interested in making this particular bench, I'll give you the dimensions. The butcher block top is 2.5 inches thick at completion, 48 inches wide by 25 inches deep. I want a 2-inch, don't forget this isn't cut yet, but I want a 2-inch overlap. So I want the stand to stop 2 inches back from all 4 sides. You're going to need to do it in 2 ways. Now our stores, and I checked all the box stores and the lumber store, and nobody has 4x4s that are not pressure treated. You cannot use pressure treated lumber if you are staining, polyurethaning, and putting it inside of a garage or shop, because pressure treated lumber has noxious chemicals in it, and it's just not a good idea. Not to mention you can't stain and poly it because it won't penetrate the wood or stick. So I was forced to use premium grade 2x4 lumber. So in this case, you're going to need 5 separate cuts. And you're going to need 4 pieces of every one of them, and the other one's over there on the bench, in order to do this. And it'll make sense here when you see me put them together. You need 4 at 31.5, 4 at 6, 4 at 18.5, 4 at 44 inches. The pieces that go deep, the aprons that go deep, are in this case 18 inches. So little tip, make sure you sand all the edges, get all the splinters off. Okay, so I'm only going to show you putting one of these together because they're all 4 identical. Now I have another piece of wood here to act as a flat when I put my pieces together, but basically taking my 6-inch block and I'm lining that up with the bottom. Then I'm taking this block and I'm using one of my other 6-inch pieces, because as I glue and screw this together, I'm using this as the perfect space to be able to put this one in place. And I'm going to go ahead and glue and screw these up and show you how they work. This is just in case I want to lean against it. So we're going to start with the leg. Make sure I marked all the pieces, so I know that this is my long leg at 31 inches. I'm going to take my 6-inch piece. It's going to go right there. I'm going to take a little bit of wood, and I am screwing in from the back. Okay. I marked my 6 inches as well. I'm screwing in from the back because this is going to be the front of the bench, and I don't want you to have to see the screws. So put your best side out, level it up. Okay, then I'm going to use my extra hand here just to hold it, because when the glue's in there, it's quite slippery. So I just want to hold it in the proper place while I line everything up. Then I'm going to tilt it up, and I'm going to make sure that I push down on both pieces and make sure my bottom is good and level. Okay, and then I'm going to drive my screws in from the back. I've already marked my screws on the back, so I know where they go. Okay, these are easy drive screws, and they use a star tip, so you can actually use an impact driver to put those on. Now that I know everything's in place where it's supposed to be and glued, the screws will hold everything. I'm using 2.5-inch screws, and I have 3 inches of wood, so I know I'm not going to come through the other side. So in this case for myself, I'm putting 4 screws, and try to make them as even as you can. And that's it. You can take this off. Everything's glued in here, and in 24 hours that glue will be stronger than the wood itself. You could even take the screws out if you want. The reason I put 4 in is because I don't want these pieces of wood to twist. I could clamp them. I could try to fit 2 or 3 clamps on a small board, but the screws, make sure everything's held together square. I've got it in all 4 corners. Here I'm going to do 2 at the bottom, 2 at the top, and then 2 in the center to keep it from twisting. And when it's finished, you won't see the screws. All you'll see is that. Now I'm going to take this next board, which is this one. I have it marked. This is a leg board. It's a short leg board. And we're going to put it here. But in order to do that, remember, we have cross pieces that go in there. So instead of just measuring and going, okay, this is where the cross piece is supposed to go to, you may end up leaving yourself a 1/4 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch because you didn't measure correctly. This way, I know I have a good tight bond, a good tight seal. So when I pull this back out of the way and I go to slide my actual board in there, it's going to slide in there nice and tight. And that's the point. You want these to be as tight as you possibly can get them. So I do that. First I'm going to glue them. And like I said, I'm not going to film all 4 of these. You don't need to watch me do 4 of them. You get the point. Don't scrimp on glue. You don't have to spread it out. I've done this a long time, and you see people saying, oh, take this and spread the glue out and all that crap. You don't have to do that. You can if you want to, but you certainly don't have to. Check your board. Make sure you got the best side facing out. In this case, little marks from the manufacturer. I'm going to put those on the inside. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to slide it around just a little, just to smooth the glue out underneath. I'm going to bring this piece together. Okay, I'm going to take my extra pair of hands. I'm going to put it together. I'm going to move this just so when I flip it up, it's still in the right position. Okay, I use a flat board underneath, one board, so that I can push it down when it's there. I push it all the way back and make sure that's good and tight. Now that's down where it's supposed to be. I'm going to put my spacer back like there, and I'm going to put a screw in it. These are outdoor wood building screws. They will not rust or anything like that. They last a lot longer than every other screw out there. I've got 2 in there, so now it's not going to move. So spend a few bucks extra. I know things are expensive these days, but if you want this stuff to last 10, 20 years, use the better screws, the better hardware. It's worth it. Especially since you're not going to be using all that many. The wood's going to be completely stained and sealed, and now I know all the hardware is good to go. And while you can see those screws, once it's in place, these are the legs, the screws are going to be in the back. You're never going to see them. And then when I take my cross pieces, my aprons, and put those in place, hopefully they're a bit tight. They'll fit perfectly. I'll screw them in from the back as well and glue them, and now you've got a perfectly strong joint. So I'm going to make the other 3 of these, and I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, this is where it's going to be a little difficult explaining exactly what's going on, because you have another cut to make. Now you can make that before you put these together, but I choose not to do that because I need to know the exact space here so I can transfer those marks out and bring this in the depth of the other piece of wood. This is the face. This is what you'll see in the front. You have an apron that comes across. Okay? But it's actually going to go like that. This is the outside leg. It's going to go just like that. But you also have another piece of wood that's going to be coming from the back to the front that needs to go in the same place. This piece will be flush here, and it will cover that, but you have to bring in the other apron. It's going to come up like this, okay, evenly. So you need to take this chunk of wood out of the way so that this can slide up against it, be inside of here, and strengthen this joint. You're going to have to check all 4 legs because 2 of them will be on this side and the other 2 on the opposite side will be on the opposite side you'll have to take out. So don't make the mistake and cut them all out on one side. Then you'll have messed up. See how the screws are here, but you won't see them. They'll be in the back. All you will see is that right there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. And what you end up with is this. Sorry, the workbench is a mess, but I like working in a mess. This is going to be the front of the leg, okay? Table's going to be up top. This is going to be the lower shelf. And what I did here, I marked it, I cut it out, and I find get close and then use a razor knife or a chisel to just take slivers away until you get that perfect fit. Don't try and take it all out at the first place, because if you take too much, nothing's going to fit. Now I know that looks skinny. That's 1.5 inches. This is actually just 1 3/4 ish. That is more than enough wood. I know you're going, well, you're taking this 4 inch by 4 inch leg and turning it into that. You're taking 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches, and turning it into that. And here's why. This is the front, and we're going to have our shelf apron that comes across widthways, and that's going to fit right in there. So you see that makes a nice joint. And it doesn't matter how long the piece is that I put in there. It fills in the space, okay? And that, my friends, is not going anywhere. So that fills in that space. And what you're going to be able to do is screw in through there into the leg. You're going to have this perfect joint that almost holds itself. And when you glue it, it will hold itself. But then, this is the front. The back is over here. We're also going to have this skirt piece that comes in. It goes just like that. So now you're starting to see, if the front of the bench goes that way, and this is the side of the bench that goes to the back leg, you can see how those 4 pieces all come together, interlock, and when they're glued and screwed, it's going to be the strongest joint you can possibly get for butt joints. And that's how that piece works. Now, remember I said it depends which leg you're working on as to which side you have to take out. On the back leg, I have to take the same side out, but it's going to be opposite because I want the screws facing forward. This bench is going to be on 4 wheels, and if he turns it around to do it the other way, I don't want you to be able to see the screws on the outside. So I'm actually going to flip it around and take out the wood on the opposite side. Then I'm going to do 2 more on the other end of the bench. One's going to be one way, the other's going to be the other way. So don't try and do all 4 at the same time. Do 1 at a time, fit the boards together, and then go, okay, this is front left corner. Now I'm going to make the front right corner, and now I know exactly which side I have to take out. Do them 1 at a time. It's going to take you longer, but it's going to be worth it in the end. All 4 of my legs are screwed and glued together. And remember I told you that you have to pay attention which side you cut out on both boards. As you can see, I have this marked front left leg, and this is marked back left leg. So what I did, because I originally made them, don't forget the faces, you're not going to see the screws on. So I had to turn this one around because that's going to face the opposite direction. So when you turn the table around, that's going to be the front. You're not going to see the screws. Then I matched this one up against it, and I marked the section, in this case the left side if you're looking at it from here, and I cut those out. And I did the same thing on the right side. I marked them what they were, back right, front right, Then I flip this one around because that's the side that's going to face the back with no screws. And then I put them together and I marked them so that they were perfect. Now it doesn't look perfect because they're not laying flat or anything, but they are. Everything's been dry fit. Now what we're going to start with is, in this case, we're going to start with the front. So I'm going to get the back legs out of the way. And we're going to put the front aprons on the long way, the 48-inch, or in this case 44-inch pieces. So the first thing I did was take all 4 of those pieces and I marked them. I marked them so I knew how far back the first board came, and I drew a line. Then I marked it again so I knew exactly what I was screwing into, and I could mark my 2 screw holes. Don't worry, this is pencil and a sander will take that off in 10 seconds. I did that to both sides. The other reason I did it was because while I was there measuring and marking, I chose which side of the board was the front and which side was the back, and I marked the front accordingly. So I marked all 4 boards. Now I know you've been bearing with me for 20 minutes or so, but we're almost there. It's now going to start looking like a bench. Now while I'm getting ready to put the bottom apron on and I've cut all the joints, I realized I didn't cut the top joints. So I've taken that, taken a spacer, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Bring that in, make a pencil line, mark the section you're taking out, because when that piece comes across, it's going to butt up with the front. Make sure you have them laid out and you're doing it on the right side. On the right side of this one, it's the right side or the outside. On the left leg, it's the left side or the outside. But then do them opposite on the back. And there we are. And the cuts match. And the cuts match. So let's put these things together. Okay, you've stuck with me this long. Now we're going to make something that resembles a bench. I've started the screws in the proper position. I'm only putting 1 in each one. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here real quick. A little bit of glue. A little bit of glue. Just on the parts that are going to be touching each other. In this case, I'm putting the top one on first because I'm just going to put these just like that. Now, when you put them together, what you want to do, remember this is the face, this is the part you're going to see. So you want to make sure that this part of the apron lines up with the side of the bench. And that's why I'm only putting in 1 at the moment, because we're going to be able to use a square and a level and square it all up before we put all the screws in. We're going to do the same thing. A little bit of glue. Again, the screws hold everything. The glue holds everything. I just don't want to make a huge mess with the glue. As long as you wipe it off quickly before it has a chance to dry, you're okay. So we just see how strong that joint is. That I gotta tap it like that. Now we're just gonna tap it and make sure it's flush. And if you cut all your pieces square, you shouldn't have too much leveling to do. Now I know I was talking all this time about not being able to see the screws, but we don't have much choice. We're gonna have to see some of them. And that, my friends, is the front. I'm going to do the same thing on the back, then I'm going to bring you back and show you why I did it this way. Now, as you can see, we have 2 sections, a front and a back, both of which are 44 inches wide to leave a 2-inch overhang on each side. We already have this stuff cut. Now from the front, you can see that those joints are good and tight all the way around, and they're going to act as clamps. And when the top is on, it will act as a clamp as well to hold every one of those joints nice and tight. They are all screwed and glued. I have 1 screw in each. There's going to be 2 screws in each, and then there's also going to be 2 screws in the end. which I'm going to show you here in just a second. Let me get some clamps ready. Because this is the face, or the part you're going to see without screws up and down the entire leg, this one gets turned around. Okay, just like that. Then this is the face here. Okay, and then we're going to connect the sides, and I'm going to show you why that's going to look like a base. Let me get some clamps. You can always use a second set of hands. Now we have a nice little pocket right there to put the sides in, and this is the reason that I do the front and back before the sides. The sides are already pre-cut. Okay, now what you do is you put those where they're supposed to be, and you take your F-clamp and you put it in place. And now, because this is flush behind here and here, this can sandwich those boards together and it will hold it for you. Now, I'm only going to do one side because I need to glue before I screw. So I'm going to do that now. And that is the beautiful thing about building these. If I had used 4x4s, I still would have cut every one of those joints to make sure that it fit exactly the same way. And if you spend that time and you do that first, putting this together, very simple. So I'm going to just put some glue. Now, I've heard people say, why do you glue every joint, especially it's just a workbench? The difference between a piece of furniture or material that you're going to make that's going to last you a lifetime and possibly your children, and something that you buy at the store that you hope will last a year or two, is the difference in the materials that you use and the way you put them together. Because glue is it's actually stronger than the wood that it's bonded to, I could make this just with glue and it would last for a few years. Then maybe when you're moving it, you might drop it out of a truck when you're moving or something like that. The glue might break, the wood around it, thing comes apart. With these screws in there, it's never coming apart. The wood will rot away and it will never come apart. Now you see why I had to cut that other bevel, that other joint. Now I'll show you in a minute. All I'm going to do, you can run screws in from the side, but I prefer, because we already are going to have two, that I'm going to put my 2 screws in the face. So it'll be 4 screws, 4 screws, 4 screws, and 4 screws. And now I've got double joints all the way around the place. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to glue and screw. I'm going to put this together, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. And now we're going to do exactly the same thing with the bottom. And I do apologize in advance. You will have to look at my dump truck because there's not much I can do. But what I wanted to show you was, now we have perfect pockets. We have wood on the side, the top, the bottom, and the back. There's only one side we don't have wood supporting, and that's on both sides. And this is going to act just like a pocket. Okay? Perfectly fit. What I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and glue those, clamp them up, put them in there, screw them, and I'll bring you back. There's 4 screws, 4 screws, 4 screws, 4 screws. And that is all you can see on the front. I will take a sander to it as well. But now this thing is jointed 4 ways, glued and screwed. And I would have no problem putting 2,000 pounds on this thing. But to start with, like I said, No screws up and down the legs, just those four and those four corners. And you can see the screws if you look through the legs, but from the opposite side, when it turns around and it's on wheels, it'll look exactly the same as this. And on the side, you don't see any screws at all. Everything is just jointed, pocketed perfectly. Oh my God. These things are so heavy. Maybe 100 pounds. Okay. And it's going to hang over. Don't forget, I have to cut the ends off. But it's going to hang over on every side by about 2 inches. And ultimately, and I'm putting it up on caster wheels tomorrow. There'll be caster wheels mounted under there, so it's going to raise it up another 4 1/4 inches for my total height. And then of course there's a little more sanding to be done, and we have to square off the edges. We have to secure the table to the frame, and I'll show you how to do that in the next video, which will be after the casters are mounted, after the edges are cut straight where they're supposed to be. I'll show you how I mount this beast, and we're going to coat it in some stain and polyurethane. And my man is getting his new bench, and this thing's going to last until his kids start woodworking. There's still a faceplate to go on here, and for the customer who will be watching, there's still a backsplash to be put on, but that's no big deal. I'm buying brand new wood for that and putting that on tomorrow. So the next time you see this, it'll be on wheels, it'll be trimmed, it'll be set, and we'll finish it up. Thanks for stopping by. If you made it this far, you're a legend. I appreciate it. Hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. If you want to see the other half of this video, the finished off model, let me know. I've stained it, polyurethaned it, taken care of it. The customer's been happy with it for 5 years. The top is butcher block that was made from old pallet wood. I do have a video on that as well. So let me know in the comments if you want to see the rest of this. Thanks for watching this old video. I wasn't very good at filming. I'm still not, but I appreciate you anyway. See you soon.